Hello, dear friends. Welcome to our channel Learn with Asif, where we bring you daily business updates and loads of information, whether it's motivational stories, inspiration, or related to the share market. So yes, keep watching our channel and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
All right, so you want to unpack this whole entrepreneur mindset thing, right?
Yeah.
Right. You specifically mentioned wanting to understand how entrepreneurs think about money differently. And we've got some pretty interesting material to work with today. A Robert Kiyosaki interview.
Oh, yeah?
He's the rich dad, poor dad guy,
Right.
known for his, shall we say, unconventional takes on wealth building.
Unconventional is putting it mildly.
Yeah.
He really throws a curveball at the usual, like, go to school, get a good job, save for retirement advice.
Right.
Kiyosaki claims that's practically useless in today's world.
He really does, doesn't he?
Yeah.
It's like he's saying the old playbook is obsolete.
Mhm.
What's fascinating is why he thinks that. He draws a parallel to the traditional job model, something he learned to avoid from his rich dad.
And that's where his whole rich dad, poor dad story comes in.
Right.
He grew up with two father figures. His own dad, a government employee,
Okay.
and his best friend's dad, a successful entrepreneur.
I see.
Kiyosaki observed that despite their different backgrounds, his friend's dad, the entrepreneur, had a much savvier approach to money.
And that's who he calls his rich dad. Not because of extravagant wealth, but because of the financial wisdom he imparted. It
Exactly.
was like a real-world business education, watching his friend's dad run things, handle money, and make decisions.
It's interesting how those early experiences shape our perspective, isn't it?
It really is.
You know, Kiyosaki emphasizes that this hands-on experience was far more valuable than any textbook lesson. He even talks about his rich dad using Monopoly to teach him about investing.
Really?
Yeah, focusing on acquiring assets, you know, those greenhouses and red hotels,
Right.
rather than simply hoarding cash.
It's a bit like that game, isn't it?
Yeah.
We instinctively know that owning assets is how you win in Monopoly.
Yeah,
Kiyosaki suggests that maybe real life isn't so different.
right.
Instead of just saving, he wants us to think, how can I put my money to work for me? Almost like building our own mini empire.
And that leads into his concept of the internal economy. Imagine for a second that you're not just at the mercy of the stock market or a boss for a paycheck.
Okay.
Kiyosaki says focus on what you can control: your financial knowledge, skills, and mindset.
That's a powerful idea. But is it realistic for everyone? Not all of us can become entrepreneurs overnight.
Of course, it's not a one-size-fits-all solution.
Right.
But the core idea is to become financially literate,
Okay.
to understand the rules of the game so you can make decisions from a position of knowledge, not fear, regardless of the external economy.
So when the stock market takes a nosedive, you don't panic. You have the tools and mindset to navigate it. I like that. It's about empowerment. But then Kiyosaki throws another curveball. He advocates for using debt strategically. He even calls savers losers and says cash is trash. Now that's fighting talk.
It certainly grabs your attention, doesn't it?
It does.
But to understand why he says this, we need to look at his view on inflation. He believes traditional savings are eroded by inflation, and that strategically using good debt borrowing to invest in appreciating assets like businesses or real estate is how you outpace it.
So he's saying don't just save your money, make your money work harder.
Yeah, he actually just refinanced $300 million in debt himself.
Wow. That's high stakes, though. It sounds like he's playing a whole different game with those kinds of numbers.
It's definitely not for the faint of heart, and Kiyosaki is the first to admit that it requires a deep understanding of debt, taxes, and investment strategies. It's about leverage.
Okay.
Imagine a lever lets you move something much heavier than you could with just your own strength.
I see.
Good debt, when used strategically, can have that same leveraging effect on your finances.
Okay.
But it also means you need to understand how to use the lever properly. Otherwise, you could get crushed.
This is where it gets really interesting for me because he doesn't just drop this bombshell and walk away.
Right.
He emphasizes finding mentors, people who are out there actually doing this, not just talking about it in theory.
Exactly. It goes back to the rich dad philosophy. It's not just what you know, but who you learn from.
Right.
He learned by observing, questioning, and getting that real-world experience.
It's almost like he's saying, don't just read about swimming, jump in the deep end with someone who knows how to pull you out if you need it.
That's a great analogy. And it highlights another crucial difference in mindset that Kiyosaki observed between his rich dad and his poor dad. While his biological father valued security and stability, a steady paycheck, a safe retirement plan, his rich dad embraced calculated risks.
That makes sense. It's natural to want security, to avoid risk. Most of us are raised that way.
Absolutely. We learn from our families, schools, even society itself to prioritize a safe and predictable path. But Kiyosaki argues that this fear of risk, while understandable, can actually become a barrier to building wealth.
So how do we break free from that fear-based mindset? How do we rewire ourselves to see opportunity where others see danger?
Kiyosaki's answer, unsurprisingly, is financial education. He firmly believes that knowledge is power when it comes to money.
Right.
The more you understand how it works, how to invest it, how to manage it, the less scary it becomes.
It's like that feeling you get when you finally understand a difficult concept. The fear melts away and you feel more confident, more in control.
Precisely. And for Kiyosaki, this education isn't just about textbooks and theories, it's about real-world experience.
Yeah.
It's about getting your hands dirty, making mistakes, and learning from them.
It's like his Monopoly analogy. You can read the rules all day long, but you won't truly understand the game until you start buying properties, making deals, maybe even going bankrupt a few times. It's through that active participation that you develop a deeper understanding.
And the same goes for building wealth, according to Kiyosaki.
Right.
He encourages people to jump in, find mentors, start businesses, invest in assets, and learn by doing, even if it means taking some calculated risks along the way.
And that's where his perspective on debt, what he calls good debt, comes into play. He argues that while most people are conditioned to fear debt, seeing it as something negative to be avoided at all costs, he views it as a powerful tool that can be used to build wealth when managed responsibly.
Think of it this way. There's bad debt, like racking up high-interest credit card charges on things you don't need and can't afford. That kind of debt digs a hole in your finances.
Like a quicksand of interest payments dragging you down.
Exactly. But then there's good debt. Let's say you take out a loan to buy a rental property.
Okay.
The rent from that property could cover the mortgage payments and even generate extra income, all while the property itself may be increasing in value.
Right.
That's debt working for you.
That's a concrete example that makes it easier to grasp. But even with good debt, it sounds like you need a solid plan, a deep understanding of how it all works, and probably nerves of steel.
Absolutely. Kiyosaki's own example of refinancing $300 million in debt while illustrating his principles is not something anyone should try without expert guidance. And it takes us back to the importance of having mentors, people who can help you navigate these complex waters.
People who've already weathered a few financial storms and can offer valuable insights based on their own experiences.
Right. It's about having someone to guide you, answer your questions, and help you avoid some of the common pitfalls. It's about learning from their successes and perhaps more importantly, from their mistakes.
So much of what we've been discussing comes down to this fundamental shift in mindset, doesn't it? Moving away from a place of fear and scarcity towards a mindset of opportunity and abundance.
It's about recognizing those ingrained beliefs we have about money, beliefs often inherited from our families or shaped by our experiences, and asking ourselves, are these beliefs serving me, or are they holding me back?
Because even if we don't all aspire to be real estate moguls or financial wizards, understanding these different mindsets and applying some of these principles to our own lives can be incredibly empowering.
Absolutely. It's about taking control of our financial well-being, making conscious choices that align with our values, and creating a healthier relationship with money, however we define that for ourselves.
That resonates with me. It's not just about the numbers in your bank account. It's about the freedom and opportunities that come with having a solid financial foundation.
Exactly. And it's about recognizing that our financial journeys are just that, journeys. There will be ups and downs, detours, and unexpected turns.
And having the right mindset, along with the knowledge and support system to navigate those twists and turns, can make all the difference.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, though, how do you know when to embrace that good debt opportunity? I mean, it's easy to say, invest in assets.
Yeah.
But there's a big difference between buying a rental property and, say, maxing out your credit card to buy into some trendy but risky investment scheme.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. That's where Kiyosaki's advice, while inspiring, needs that extra layer of caution.
Right.
He's painting with broad strokes,
Yeah.
and sometimes the details get lost. It's not about blindly taking on debt because he made it work for him.
So where do we draw that line? How do we as individuals decide when debt is a tool for growth and when it's a potential trap?
Kiyosaki would be the first to say, educate yourself. Don't just take his word for it, or anyone's for that matter.
Right.
Understanding the different types of debt, interest rates, how investments work, even the tax implications.
Right.
That's your foundation.
So you're making informed decisions, not just following blindly. But that takes time and effort. Is that where finding those mentors comes in again?
Absolutely. A good financial advisor can be worth their weight in gold, especially if they align with your goals and you trust their judgment. They can help you assess your specific situation, your risk tolerance, whether an opportunity aligns with your long-term vision.
Because even if Kiyosaki is right about debt being a powerful lever, you need to know where to place it, what to use it on, and most importantly, when not to use it at all.
Exactly. And that's something that often gets lost in these conversations about wealth building. Not every strategy is right for everyone.
Right.
There are many paths to financial well-being.
Yeah.
And what works for one person might be disastrous for another.
It's like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole.
Yeah.
Right? You can force it, but it's not going to end well.
Exactly. And that's why exploring these different mindsets around money is so valuable. It's not about blindly adopting one guru's philosophy,
Right.
but about using these ideas as stepping stones to develop your own approach.
We've covered a lot of ground today, from obsolete versus adaptable thinking to Kiyosaki's controversial views on debt. It's a lot to process.
It is.
But if there's one key takeaway for our listeners, what would you say it is?
I think it's this. Your mindset about money is just as important as your actual financial situation. It shapes how you view opportunities, how you approach challenges, and ultimately, how you manage your financial well-being.
It's like having a financial GPS.
Right.
If your internal GPS is telling you to avoid every